Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. People often look at indie titles and think of them as games that aren't worth playing because they aren't behemoths like Mario and Halo. But I can assure you, indie games are the most interesting and unique games out there. The indie scene has really blown up over the years, and for good reason. They offer unique experiences and compelling gameplay more so than the AAA juggernauts. Indies are often found primarily on PC, with them later releasing to other platforms. But there's one platform in particular that has indie studios from all over the world excited, and that is the Nintendo Switch. The pick up and play philosophy of the Switch has gotten indie developers enthusiastic for their games to be ported over to the system. It's a match made in heaven. So I've decided to do a totally original video, no one has ever done this before, and rank my favorite indie games on the Switch. Now I must disclose that this isn't a full review of each game, so without further ado, let's get into some quality games. Untitled Goose Game is a meme and I love it. The concept is amazing. The game is literally just about a goose messing with people, and it doesn't need to be anything more than that. There's a to-do list that has you doing odd tasks throughout the game, and it has you thinking creatively on how to accomplish each task. It's a fun experience, especially with a friend. But after my time playing through it, I haven't really wanted to go back. It's a really enjoyable game, but after beating the game, I had no interest doing the extra task on the to-do list. But it's there for people who do want to do those extra tasks. It's a hilarious game, and it's worth a playthrough. As much as I had a good time with this game, I don't know, thinking about playing through it again, it's just something I didn't want to do. For me, it's a one and done game. But it's a hilarious game, and it's worth at least one playthrough. Cuphead is an interesting game because while I like the art style and the animation a ton, the gameplay is something else. The game is comprised of two different gameplay sections. The first being 2D side-scrolling sections, which are freaking intense and difficult. And then you have the second part of the game, which is even worse, the boss battles. Holy crap. Each boss has different phases that it goes through, and wow is it stressful. But even though it is difficult, once you beat a side-scrolling level or a boss level, man is it so satisfying. You really earned that victory because man, there's no easy way to do any of these boss battles or side-scrolling levels. You just have to power through with you and a buddy, or by yourself if you want to go mad. You're never handed a fight on a silver platter. You earned every win. But then right after that hard boss battle, you have another boss battle, which is even harder than the one you just got done beating. This is the cycle of Cuphead, and while I do love the art style, the animation, and I love some of the gameplay, man is it hard. It is just so hard. It can be so frustrating to go through. But overall, I would recommend if you have a friend that is willing to suffer with you. Also, be sure to take breaks frequently, because it will sure help your mental health. But seriously, I would love to see a sequel that maybe is a little easier, maybe have it as a platformer. That would be really cool. Have a 1920s animated platformer. That would be incredible. I would love that. Shovel Knight is one of the most popular indie games out there, and it's still not my favorite. I remember the hype behind this game and everyone adored it, and after playing it, I can definitely see why. Shovel Knight is a solid platformer with a classic 8-bit art style. It's a quirky game with a great sense of humor, and I love how fluid the gameplay is. It's very responsive, and Shovel Knight can be difficult at times, especially with two people on screen, and the bosses are crazy tough. I like that there are towns you can visit for upgrades and items. The game as a whole hasn't clicked with me like others though. I think it's the level design that just isn't very appealing to me. It doesn't allow you to explore as much. Don't get me wrong, there are some hidden secrets and hidden level segments for you to explore, but I don't know, it just doesn't click with me like others. But with that being said, I still really had a good time with this game. It's still a fun time with tight controls and a great soundtrack. It's definitely worth checking out. Messenger is pretty whack. but I love it. The Messenger is a 2D action platformer with a unique gameplay mechanic that has the game switching between two art styles. First, you play through the game in an NES art style and then an SNES art style, which looks gorgeous. The platforming is challenging, but not to the point where it's too hard. You get upgrades throughout the game, which is great, but once you get all the upgrades, that's it. There's not much in terms of progression outside of getting to the next boss or area. I wish there were more upgrades and things to spend your currency on. Also, the game turns into a Metroidvania in the middle of the playthrough, which is a cool idea, but honestly it's not very fun to travel through these areas more than once. I think the idea is great, but I wish it was done a little bit better. The writing is excellent with some hilarious characters. The shop wizard is the best character and no one can tell me otherwise. Overall, great game with a good chunk of content to keep you playing for a while. I've done a whole review on Cyber Shadow, but to boil it down, it's a great 2D side-scrolling adventure. It's one of those games that you'll die a lot, but you want to keep pushing through. You start off pretty weak and then end up with an arsenal of weapons and upgrades. The gameplay is satisfying and quick. The art style and animation are amazing. Cyber Shadow was inspired by games like Ninja Gaiden. The story can be interesting, but I wish there was more to flesh it out. Also, I think the gameplay could actually work as a Metroidvania in the sequel, which would be fantastic, but as it is now, it's great. I hope this gets a sequel in the future because it deserves it. I'm shocked how Stardew Valley just pulled me into its game. It's such a chill game that will have you playing hours at a time as you slowly but surely turn this dump of a farm into a better looking farm. Stardew Valley is like a life simulator game where you make relationships with the townsfolk and do chores around the town to make it a better place. There's a lot you can do in the game, and I think the game is at its best near the beginning hours. Once you've done most of the tasks and goals, there's not much else you can do outside of doing little things here and there. But man, did I sink a ton of hours into this game, and it's honestly worth your time if you're into these games. Celeste is a wonderful game with an excellent message about anxiety and how it can cripple someone. The game has you climbing a mountain and face many trials along the way, both in story and in gameplay. Celeste is a 2D platformer and an excellent one at that. You gradually learn the mechanics of this game, and man does it turn up the difficulty at the end. You essentially just progress through each level, but there are optional strawberries you can get that add to your playtime. These are so satisfying to get, and some of them are tough to reach. There are even harder levels you can unlock if you really want to test yourself. I'm not that kind of person, but it's there if you want. The music is also really good, and it's one of the highlights of the game. Overall, it's a fantastic game with superb 2D platforming. If you're a fan of roguelikes, then Hades is a no-brainer. If you're not a fan of roguelikes, then it's still worth checking out. I fall on the latter side of things, and holy crap, this game is fun. If you're new to this genre, let me explain. Hades takes you through a handful of realms, with each room being procedurally generated, meaning you'll see similar layouts time and time again. You basically just try to escape hell and meet up where most of the gods are, on the surface. The gods give you special buffs to help you get further and further until you eventually make it out. It's not an easy journey to get out, and that's the thing about roguelikes. Once you die, you go all the way back to the very beginning, which in this case is the House of Hades. Back at the start of your journey, you will die in this game, a lot. But that's okay because each time you die and come back, new story elements and interactions start popping up, and new characters begin to be introduced. The further you go through the areas, the more characters you meet and the story fleshes out. It's incredibly addicting, and there are numerous upgrades you can get to improve each run through hell. I'm a sucker for long-lasting upgrades, and this game has a plentiful amount of them. Overall, I love this game. It's fun with a nice sense of progression and a colorful cast of characters. Definitely worth checking out, even if you're not a fan of the genre. This is it, Chief. This is the #1 indie game, and you know it has to be Hollow Knight. My goodness, is this a fantastic game. It brings a dark, gritty atmosphere with a somber tone throughout the entire experience. I'm usually not into gloomy looking games, but Hollow Knight really sucked me into its world. It managed to hook me on its gameplay. Hollow Knight is a Metroidvania that has you exploring a handcrafted world, discovering new areas and finding abilities or upgrades to traverse new or hidden areas. This progression loop is so good, and it makes you want to keep going even though this game can be unforgiving at times. The combat is simple but effective. If you want to survive, you have to learn enemy attack patterns so you can avoid getting slaughtered over and over again. If you die, all of your currency stays where you died, so you have to go back and get it. The music matches the tone of the game as well, and it's hauntingly beautiful. This is hands down my favorite indie game on the Switch, and it is a must-play for all Switch owners. Heck, this might even be my favorite indie game of all time. It's that good. You must check this out. That about wraps up all the indie games. I was going to put a 10th one, but I decided not to. The cool thing about indie games is that they come out so frequently, and there are so many great indie developers out there. We got so many great indie games coming out soon, and man, I just can't wait to play the best looking ones. But what about you? What are your favorite indie games on the Switch? Or heck, just what are your favorite indie games? Let me know down in the comments below, and I'll be sure to see y'all next time. God bless.